welcome to part 2 of this tutorial looking at how to make modded doors for the game Space Engineers. So following on from part 1 where I covered the model basics, in this section I'm going to go over the SBC file and how that's all set up in order to control these subparts that we've just had created in our model. Now this is the definition that I have set up for this particular door. You will get the standard output of a QBlock definition from the Space Engineers utilities, where you can then add in your component counts, it'll generate the mount points, but you can modify those if something's not right. But then everything from there downwards, this is bespoke. Now, there are currently no examples in the game of an advanced door on how it works, which is why I thought it was a good choice for this tutorial. As with a standard door, you pretty much just have the opening distance and opening speed in which you can adjust. Aside from that, everything else is fixed by the game code. Here with an advanced door, we can specify multiple objects and have those multiple objects do multiple different animations. The first part, we have to define subparts. So here I've included the name of each of those empties from Blender by name without the subpart prefix. So here we have door slide 1, door slide 2, 2 locks, the left and the right and the left and the right second parts. Now these will from then on be referred to by their ID numbers. Now I've just listed these here as comments so that it's a bit easier to see. But the first definition defined will be part 0, then part 1, 2, 3, and so on. So remembering that 0 is the first part defined. So we want to get our door to open. We start with the opening sequence. So here for our opening sequence, I have part 0. I want it to slide. I'm going to give it the slide direction. So I've written here a bit of a cheat sheet that X is sideways, Z is forward backwards, or Y in Blender. Y here is the elevation, i.e. up and down, which is what we would consider Z in Blender. So here I have a slide direction of -1 on the Z direction for part 0, which if we go back is our door slide 1. So we're telling our door slide 1 part to go in the Y direction in Blender by 1 meter. So that's why you see the door slide locking sort of style mechanism move as the first object. We can set the speed, we can set a delay, and we can set a delay for the closing. So what happens here is that we're defining the opening sequence of the door, but what happens is that this will run in reverse for the close. So here we want this to happen straight away, so our opening delay is 0, but in the reverse action, this we want to happen 1.7 seconds after the close action has been triggered. And then on this section of the sequence, I have defined the sound. So here we have this, just a standard door sliding sound of open, and then I've also set it as the standard closing sound for the close. You can specify a separate sound for each section of your door, but these things can sometimes get a bit complicated as you have to do a lot of specific timing. So depending upon how complicated you're getting with your door, how complicated you're getting with your sound design, you can define multiple open and close sounds for different stages of the opening and closing sequence. So the next part I have here is my subpart ID 2, which we look up here is door lock 1. I set it to rotate. I've defined the rotation axis as X, which is the same as in our Blender scene. So its rotational axis will be X. I have given it a specific pivot position. So the point at which it will rotate around, that's only if you're not rotating around the model's center, as all subparts in an advanced door are referenced to the main central 0, point. If I didn't give a set pivot position, we would end up with a rotation that went like this. And then we have 60 degrees of rotation. Invert rotation I've set here is true. That means it's going to move counterclockwise. Here with the speed set of 100. You can't quite exactly explain the speed of rotating objects, but play around with it till you get a number that you feel works for you. And here we have open delay of 0, so this happens at exactly the same time as our bolt slide is moving across to give that illusion of a sort of a rack and cog mechanism sliding a bolt across on the door. So next we have the opposing action on the other side of the door. So our subpart 1 and subparts 3, the other slide, the other lock, and corresponding actions that are the opposite direction from the first one. So here, where instead of moving in -1, here we are +1, and the rotation here is 60 degrees again, but we're not inverting that rotation. So invert rotation here is false, meaning that it will turn the other direction from the first one. So once that action is completed, we have some further slide actions. So here we have subpart 0, subpart 2, and subpart 4 will slide in that direction, -1, with a speed and a maximum open distance, and then a delay. So once this rotation is complete, the delay means that this action will happen after that action. And because I've timed it, I've got 1 second here to be my delay time. And that means that those subpart 4 is our door left, and then subpart 5 being our door right, means that these first panels of our door will start moving with the lock mechanism before the other parts move after 1 second. Then we have our even numbers and then our odd numbers, 0, 2, 4, and 6 being one side, 1, 3, 5, and 7 being subparts from the other side, and they're going to move that final meter after the 1.2 seconds, but then with a close delay of 0. So when we go to close the door again, we have no delay. Let me just demonstrate that in game. Then we have that rotation with slide. Then we have the first slide, and then we have the second slide, and then the reverse action with a slight pause where the first part of the door opens before the second part of the door opens. But in the reverse, everything moves at the same time, as we gave no delay, closing delay, on those two sliding actions. You can combine slide and rotate actions by using a combination of open and close delays, by defining the same subpart ID in multiple opening sections. But slide and rotate are the only functions you can have. You can't scale an object, and you can't do any disappearing tricks with objects. You can only sort of move them as though functional mechanical doors. Some of the limitations for an advanced door are that you have to have everything defined in this way. And one of the things I specifically did is I made very clear denotion of the subpart empty name in the Blender file, but I named the scenes, and so therefore the file names for the subparts, very generically. This was rather deliberate, because if these scenes have the same name as the subpart empty names, you will get duplicated objects in the game. What happens is that the advanced door system was originally set up to not use empty objects with subpart linking in this way, but was designed to seek out the other model components from their file names. And so what happens is you get a conflict in the code if you're using the same name for the object and the linking empty, and you will get this sort of ghost part that doesn't move, that has no collisions, and you end up with a bit of a mess. One of the other parts you have with the advanced door is that all of the connecting empties have to be at the 0, 0 point. You may want to have some pieces offset, and in order to achieve the offset of the component, it has to be modeled as such. And so each piece is modeled in reference to the same center scene position, and then when you connect the dummies, it should hopefully line up in that position. But this does mean that you can't duplicate parts. So here I have the two locking mechanisms, which are essentially the same part. Here I have to have the model to subpart 3 and subpart 4 as exactly the same object, but in two different places. But one of the other things that Advanced Door gives you is that you can have these parts, these subparts, with bespoke build stages. So as you do your main stage, you can have the subpart linking components in the build stage and have build stages for your subparts rather than having to have those as a build stage mesh in the main object only, which vanilla doors only have the one build state, which is the whole part, and then the subparts are brought in when the door is completed. So there's a lot of details in making a door, but it's not a terrifically complex system. I feel it can often be very impressive to have a slightly different animation for a door than the ones that we're presented with in vanilla, but it doesn't take that much more complexity to set it up and to get working in the game. Hopefully that helps anyone who's looking to get into using subparts, who wants to make doors or anything like that. There's a lot of resources on this one, as there's quite a few different options, quite a few different ways in which you can approach this task. So have a look in the link below where we've got some example mods and some resources you can download to help your modding journey. As always, as I say, you can leave comments below and I'll try and answer any questions. But the best place to getting advice is on the official Keen Discord. There's a whole bunch of modders just waiting to answer any questions you have. Thanks for watching.